Good evening, everyone. We are live. Welcome to TRH, the Reconnection Hour by Mr. Perfect. I'm Terry, founder and CEO of Mr. Perfect. Most of you will know. What is Mr. Perfect? Well, we're a grassroots charity that brings men, mainly men, together at barbecues in local parks across Australia to create community and connection. However, we are more than a barbecue. Online, we provide support, information, and resources for the good of men's health. What's TRH? Well, look, we chat to health professionals and other people doing incredible things in the world of connection and men's health. A little bit of a disclaimer, I say this every week, we don't tend to go too gory and we go deep sometimes, but not too full on about particular mental health issues. So be aware we may mention some things, and if it is triggering, then just be aware there may be some touchy subjects we talk about. And also, to be very aware when we have clinical people on that it's not any personal medical or clinical advice for any of the questions. If anyone does ask any questions, then this is purely generalized discussion. How's my week been, or our week in the Mr. Perfect world? Well, I met an incredible guy today called Jimmy Halfcut. If you Google him, you'll see what he's about. He tried to persuade me to shave half my beard off. And you can read more about that later because I'll send a link through about what he does. We've got some great news that we smashed all our personal best records for numbers at barbecues in the last couple of weeks, which is just incredible to see. A real flurry of just activity, media, people coming to the barbecues, people wanting to start barbecues. So couldn't be in a better spot. I'm very pleased. We've got some Christmas specials coming across the country, so we're going to amalgamate a couple of our barbecues in Sydney, Brisbane, Perth as well, which would be amazing. And just before we were coming on, I was talking to our guest tonight, Mark, and saying, just been one of those days today. Had a glass of wine before this, just one, just to unwind. And I was, I didn't allude to it too much, but I was saying my anxiety for some reason this week has been just at peak level. Well, I say peak level, but it's been at a point where it was more than it has been recently. So it's very apt that tonight we are chatting with Dr. Mark Cross. Mark has been on here before. He's a prominent psychiatrist, but as I think I said in my blurb, a whole lot more than that. As his SANE bio explains, which I really liked, I picked off the website. He knows a lot about anxiety. Many of his patients experience it, which is hardly surprising given anxiety is the most common mental health issue in Australia. Mark knows all about anxiety from another perspective because he has lived with it all his life. So welcome back, Mark. How are you going?
Hello, you.
Hello again. What's been happening?
I just like your beard. We were talking about beards earlier. I start getting itchy and then I don't bother. But so many of my friends and patients and colleagues, and we're all growing the beards during COVID. So I think it'll be nice. Hopefully over Christmas or whatever, you'll feel you can trim it at least a little bit, maybe to show.
Well, my mother-in-law doesn't like it. She makes some very strong comments about it at the dinner table. She doesn't hold back, that's for sure. She goes, isn't it itchy? Isn't it itchy on your boys when you cuddle them? I said, no, they don't mind. I think it's fine. So yeah, she's trying to get me to shave it. But we'll see. Maybe in the new year. We'll see.
Funny, I don't think the length matters. Every time I kiss my son, I think, oh, scratchy. So maybe they get to the age now. Hey, Daryl.
So remind our viewers and people that will watch this back tomorrow, no doubt, a little bit about you, who you are, what you do. I think last time we talked quite a bit about your upbringing, which is brilliant because, interestingly, when I've asked doctors before, not just doctors, other people as well, they've not been as candid as you have, and they won't talk about their history. They won't talk much about childhood. They kind of hold back a little bit, and I get it. And I just say, yeah, you feel comfortable saying what you did. So last time you were very candid, which was brilliant. So yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting one, but as you know, you're in my book, right? So I write about it. So it's hard once you've put it out there to then start saying, oh, no, I think I won't talk about it now.
Take it back.
But it's come at a great time in my life. I turned 55 this year. I'm feeling very positive about myself. I've done well in my career. I work fully in private practice now, so people can choose to come see me, which has enabled me to be more open about myself, my sexuality, my anxiety, And of course, my books are closed, so I don't think it's been a bad thing. And I am now an exciting development, by the way, because I do this podcast weekly, The Anxious Shrink.
Mm-hmm.
A good friend of mine, Sue, you've not met, but you're in the same film together, and in the book, Beneath the Stigma, and her and Tony are already close friends of ours. And she chats to me, and it's a wonderful community. And apparently last week, 16,000 people hit on it. So I'm going, bloody hell. But a lot of my patients come, so consumers, lived experience, family. My husband's brother comes from Scotland. We've got friends from South Africa, people from England. So there's always about 60 people chatting away in the now half an hour. We started 20 minutes. And tonight was a difficult one. Talk about mixed emotions, right? And I am open about things.
Of course.
But it's interesting when you talk about doctors not wanting to share of ourselves. We talked that we have to have boundaries, but you can still have boundaries without it being us and them, and that's how I've always worked. And you get I'm more experienced as well now. But one of my favorite patients, and I have to, I've got a lot of favorite patients. I loved her, and she was someone with complex mental health issues, and she suicided on Sunday. So, and again, you did give the warning, and I talk about raw stuff, but
of course,
that's not a trigger. Actually, it's sensationalizing suicide and news feeds being, repeating and talking about exact methods. That's not something I do, and I don't glorify it at all. But it's something to talk about. And it doesn't actually trigger talking about and asking someone. So I always will ask that. And people actually find it helpful that you bring it into the open. It's no longer a dirty secret and a horrible thing that they hold, and there's no shame or guilt. So I know, sorry, I'm supposed to be talking about me, but that's
cool.
And that's linked to what I believe in. But, I believe in kindness and compassion. I just wish, and I've said this to Terry before, I could extrapolate that properly when I'm behind the wheel in my car, because my best friend in London said, I'm a straight man, white van man when I get behind the wheel of the car. I'm still such a London driver. P-platers, get out of my way,
You sound like my older brother is a tradie in London, and he's exactly that. His white van I remember once he dropped me somewhere, and I just held on for dear life. Like the van was up the back of every single car. Get out the way. Every 2 seconds. But
I used to give registrars lifts when I was training, and they used to fight to get in the back because in the front, I'm like, get out of the way, what are you doing? So it was like, calm down. And you know what? It runs in the family. My father, I love my father to bits. I'll tell you a funny story about him right in South Africa. And, he's a white man. We grew up white South Africans, ruling the roost and all that sort of stuff, and that all changed. And, these old retired white men moaning about everything. And he had this old BMW. And he almost lies down when he drives. There's like driving along, and he's zipping around. And there's this elderly black gentleman in front of him. He's going, get out of my way, get out of my way. And he goes and passes him on the left, stops, and goes, gives him the birdie, and promptly crashes into the parked car in front of him.
No.
And this lovely old guy in his old car went past and waved. And I said, you can't do that anymore. The guy might have had a gun, for God's sake, calm down. But unfortunately, it's in my genes, so that's one thing. Moving swiftly on from driving.
Well, that's that's enough to make you anxious. Well, being a passenger there would definitely make me anxious in my brother's car, that's for sure. But the reactions, I was just thinking as you were saying that, about your dad's kind of reactions to things. And I'm not too bad in the car, but I feel I always second guess my reactions to things I go deeper on my reactions to things afterwards. Like I always use the example when the tension's building when it's bath time and bedtime with the boys, and they are just, it's carnage, and they're fighting and they refuse to get in the bath. They're doing what they're doing. And then if I raise my voice or do something, and I know it's like an out-of-body experience, I can see myself doing it. My anxiety level is just so, like, it's tension, like a guitar string, to the point that it's so tense. And then I know I'm doing it, and I know I'm there in that moment, but I can't escape that moment. And I don't always wonder if that's just sort of my reaction to things that I'm programmed, or just is that part of my anxiety? I don't know. I've always questioned it.
It's a difficult one because I did the same. It's interesting. I laughed when you said that because, number one, it's the witching hour. So kids at that stage at night, just everything goes out the window, right? And you feel saying, why do we have to go through this every single night at the same time? But after lights out, they got their little torches and there's a tick box. Yeah, we got him to do it again at the right time. Yeah. So there you go.
Very true. Yeah.
So,
that's why I sort of highlighted when I introduced you the anxiety point, because although you're much more than just knowing about anxiety, it seems the common thread of things, I don't know, that we've been connected through, and the book, The Anxious Shrink, everything. I think I used to think that it was depression was my thing. That was the way I just told myself. I was like, I'm sad about the world, everything's this. And I always told myself it was that. And when I started unpeeling everything, I think there was a big chunk of it which was anxiety related rather than depression. Like there was a bigger chunk than I realized. And now it's more, I have to work on strategies to calm that rather than my thoughts that are dark about the world, if you see what I mean. So over time, as I've got older, I think it's maybe morphed a little bit into more anxiety is a thing I try and manage now. And like through a number of methods, and it's just, so I was intrigued to find out from you. Yeah, and I'm sure you could talk about this for a long time, but what works for you personally, and how do you try and work with patients and, with anxiety?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm just on your point though. When you get anxious, you feel crap, and that adrenaline's going. It does make you feel depressed because then and that's the link with you, especially. I think, as you just described it. But what works with me? Well, people will. John's in the next room going, sometimes nothing, Terry, and I want to, touch him on the head. Getting a routine. I always say this. It really is important. Because when I'm running around trying to fit too much in, and then I know that I'm late, then I know that my car journey, and coming back to the car, and when you're starting to be aggressive and irritable and cranky in the car, that's not a good thing. And so you have to have that level of insight, I call it, to go, no, I acknowledge what's going on, and you have to try and correct it. So the first thing I always think is acknowledging. You go, and it takes us a while, right? Especially us guys. It does take us a while. And when you finally do acknowledge things, then it gets better. You go, okay, this is something I need to try and work on. And that's what we guys are actually quite good at doing. We're quite good at solutions. So I look at a solution-focused way of dealing with things. And even now with my breathing's so important. So stepping way back, I'm talking about kids in the bath and going, and your red wine, and that's all fine. We need to be able to relax at night, get into a good sleep hygiene. So I spend a lot of my time talking in my sessions about the Holy Trinity. I talk about lifestyle stuff, diet, sleep, exercise. And of course, that's not the be all and end all of mental health, because sometimes you got to get this right? So sometimes people go, oh, if you just get diet and sleep right, you don't need medication. Then I go, not so gently sometimes. And where did you get your medical degree from? Don't make people feel bad because they're taking medication, because actually it's quite useful for them. And medication can get you to the stage where you can diet and exercise and sleep better. But I'll talk about that. And so 3 hours before bed, no food. An hour before bed, come off the devices. And, 10 hours before bed, don't have any caffeine. So it's actually quite a nice thing I try and follow. Sleep is pivotal to mood, including anxiety, hugely. And I know when you wake up in the morning and you're cranky, it's always good to do breathing and meditation and look out the window and have that awe moment. I think we forget. We live in Sydney is one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Correct.
So this weekend, I was with my friends on the North Shore on their grass, sipping. I wasn't following my healthy November, right? So we had a couple of champagnes and wines. It was wonderful. Looking out over the water, going, my God, People pay for this stuff or pay to come to this country, and here it is in our backyard. So that sort of stuff. At all moment go, wow, this is an awesome harbor, and I'm so lucky to be here, and I'm so grateful to be here. And I'm not that sort of touchy-feely person, right? So actually, it's a lovely thing just being in touch with this nature and with the spirituality at times. I think that's lovely. So those are the things that I try and do every day. And then I just try and be kind to myself, because you talked earlier about, you've got to be kind to yourself, and before you can be kind to others. It doesn't cost much. It really is. It really is a nice thing to do. So,
and you hit on a good point there. I was talking to a friend of mine who's soon will be a psychiatrist in a year or so, I think. We have great open chats when we meet up. He's a friend as well as someone I've known through sort of work things, and we were just talking about how we used to view the things that work for us and how we view them now. And we both had sort of young kids and we've gone through these things. And I just said I used to think it was the clinical stuff was my kind of 90%, and if I didn't do that, and that was to blame. That was why I wasn't on track, and I wasn't and over time that has kind of gone like this down to probably around 30% of my routine and everything I do is that. And it was only recently someone said, you seem like even my psychologist said it, he said, you got so much more energy, and you seem like that I can feel it from you and everything. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, I can't bottle. And I was trying really hard. I was going to make something up, and just because I felt under pressure to say, yes, these are the things I'm doing that are making things good at the moment. But I couldn't put my finger on it completely, but I could a little bit. I said, look, I'm definitely being a lot kinder to myself. Definitely not letting those things get to me as much as they used to, or the things that are just not as important. And I said, I just like myself more. And he's like, well, that's a good start. He said, and then we sort of talked through that. And I said, but if you could bottle that, and you could just do a little bit more of that each day, you'd find that life was, And then I say today, I joke, today I just had one of those days where it was really good, but then there was lots of bad parts. And then you kind of I almost went into that mindset of, I'll let that go kind of thing. And then I just went, no, it's just one day out of, probably the last 2 weeks, one crappy day, that's it. It's pretty good, So again, it's just this game of me telling myself that no, this is all right. You're doing the right things. Things are progressing. It's always progress.
That is nice. It's positive self-talk. Yeah. It's very hard. I don't know. I say to people, look at yourself in the mirror, and I look at myself in the mirror and go, who the fuck is that ugly old bald man? But it's like, oh, hello. It's really hard to look at yourself in the mirror, and I said I wouldn't swear, but anyway. And you got to, if you try that, you've got to talk to yourself positively and look yourself in the eye. It's not an easy thing. It's quite an interesting thing to do, but that positive self-talk, because if you talk negatively to yourself, and I often say that to my patients or people I treat or chat to, go, that stuff you're saying to yourself, you wouldn't say to anyone else. So why is it that you're able to say it to yourself, or you allow yourself to do that? No. But, it's that every now and then, and that's part of acknowledging, every now and then you'll feel great and you go, whoa, hold on. Let me analyze this now. Why am I feeling great?
Yeah.
Well, it's because I've stuck to my routines. I'm sitting with people I love. I feel supported. I feel connected. It's a connection. And look at us. We always get on. It's always lovely to see you, and we chat about things. It's a connection, guys. I mean, that's the most important thing. And I always say to anyone after my show or speaking to you, speak to someone. I don't care who it is. And that's why this charity is so amazing, and Terry's done so amazingly. And I always talk about him, and we cross-reference each other, so it's quite nice. But, I'm going all over the place there. But coming back to your registrar friend, it's so funny because now, I was head of department at Liverpool, a medical head of department for many years, and when we made Changing Minds. But I have this knack, and again, it's treating people like humans, right? So sometimes I would, people like patients. So sometimes I'd be covering 40 beds. So that means 40 people I had to make decisions for in the day. Talk about how we cope, well, lots of coffee. So I go along and I'd have the registrars following me with their clipboards almost. And I'd go, hey, Terry, how are you doing today? 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And I could work out with you, because I know you well, what's needed medication-wise. Maybe you're getting ready for discharge. Okay, this is your leave or whatever. And they'd be scribbling away and then following me. And my ward round, and I'd do all that, and I'd see about 20 people in 2 hours and go, okay, that's it. It's hard to teach that. But sometimes, you just have to have a common sense and, I don't know, speak to people properly and listen to them. So it's that gut instinct that's important too. And you've got to follow your own gut instinct about yourself. And when you're not doing things right for yourself, that part of you is going, no, hold on, this isn't right. Don't ignore it.
Yeah, well, I pinpointed it. I look back and I went, the last week or so, one of my boys has not been sleeping well. He's normally a great sleeper. He's just been waking up, and he's definitely anxious himself. And he's waking up, screaming in the middle of the night, coming in, and then I'm tired and I have to go get in his bed, and I don't get as good sleep. And then I just look back and I go, well, actually, there's a pretty good reason that my anxiety is higher at the moment, and these things are making me grumpy, because I'm already going to be a little bit sensitive to it. And I was on such a good path of just routine, and then that tipped it a bit. The sleep was a massive thing. And then, ironically, I joke about having a glass of wine. I just realized that I came home and was like, oh yeah, I'll just have a glass of wine, and that made me feel better. And immediately you realize, well, that then becomes, those things then become a routine. It's probably not going to be the greatest routine. You should be having a cup of tea or something. But the thing I'm going off track now, but the thing I was going to mention to you was I had this moment today, and I thought, you said then I used the same anxious mindset of questioning when it was bad, why is this happening, to when it was good, so why am I feeling good now? And then you just hit the nail on the head. It's because, connected with people, bam, bam, bam. But then I was like, well, what's going to go wrong? And I've got better at that. I still kind of do it, but I try to move away from it a bit. So even today, before I'm meeting two people, like one I've not met, one I know really well, I was still anxious about going to meet them, and I'd imagine the scenario in my mind that it might not go well and I might not be as engaging as I might not be. And then I do it and I go, man, that was the best thing in the world. Like, this is exactly what I needed, like, to connect with someone like that. And even though you know that is going to happen, the outcome is going to be good. That for me is how anxiety resonates. It makes me just walk through that scenario 20 times before I even arrive. And then I do it, and then an hour later I go, what was I worried about? It's like the same over and over again.
But sure, but it's nice to measure that, because you just described social anxiety to a T, which of course I get. And people, they look at you and me and they go, what are they on about? They don't realize what's going on in our heads, that constant rumination. And so when you measure, anxiety before, and you manage to get out the door, and the event itself, and then you measure it afterwards, we don't do enough of that, because that's part of it as well. You go, wow, my anxiety really came down, because actually it's that social anxiety and working yourself up about something that hasn't happened, which we call anticipatory anxiety. So you're anticipating horrible things, and when you finally go, then it's great, you're connecting, anxiety comes down, and you go, well, what am I worrying about? But that's also almost a negative, right? You go, well, actually, it worked, and therefore the next time I need to remember that, so I can be positive about. But it's quite an interesting thing, because we do it all the time. We tried a fun game not so long ago about you had to pay $1 for every negative thought or comment or statement you made. Well, I gave up, because in about half an hour it was $50 that I owed. So it's like, whoa, I've got to follow my own advice. I mean, that's important, right? But I just want to quickly come back to alcohol. And in this COVID time, and we last chatted, I think, a couple of months back, right, in the height of the COVID period. And there have been some positives out of all this. Yeah. So at least 3 months ago, right? And that was, I have not had a cold or flu episode this entire year. And that's because so that's a positive for me. Calming, spending more time. We spend more time in Australia, and we chose to come here 15 years ago than in the whole 15 years we've been here. And it's So there have been some wonderful things, right? But I've also said at talks and whatever, don't feel guilt or shame about eating pizza, fries, and drinking some wine, as long as you do it in a mindful way, or you say, okay, today I'm gonna go for it. I really do think that. And whenever I talk about these things with patients or friends, everyone talks to me about things, right? I always go, it has to be good for you, and you have to look at how it affects you, your environment, and your family and friends. And if they're saying to you, well, that wasn't so great, or you need to listen to that, and then it's not so great drinking.
That's good, because I got a work colleague of mine. She's South African. As coincidentally, she's been here, I don't know, a long time, and we joke about it because she's got twins, young twins, and another child as well. And her life is just hectic. Like, it's pretty hectic, but she's so, as South Africans tend to be, quite strong-willed. She just deals with it, and she just, But she jokes about it and says, Terry, I'm never going to give up my wine. Like, that's like my treat to me. She goes, and she, no doubt, we've had many discussions about anxiety that she suffered and everything else. And she says, I'm not going to, that's just stupid. Why would you even try and attempt to give up, having a glass of wine? She goes, if it works for you and you're not getting hammered every night, then what is wrong with that? I'm saying, oh,
sure.
Yeah.
One could say, yes, I agree. I mean, but one could say she's in the pre-contemplative stage and she's intellectualizing. But as long as I love my alcohol. I come in again. I've got alcohol problems in both sides of my family, so it's very personal and professional. I know my default position has been in the past drinking too much, and so I've had to look at that. And now I like a tipple. I like that little intoxicating feeling when you're feeling a bit tipsy, but then I stop. It's interesting. It takes a long time and years of experience to work out how to use alcohol, if that's what you want to do. And I love having a good, nice little evening with friends, as long as it doesn't get, I don't like that drunken stage, or, that's for young people. And we do, as you know, it's a real problem in our culture, drinking. And so I always look at that, but I never judge. And again, a lot of people drink too much because of their mental health issues, or take drugs or various other things. And it's amazing when you do actually take control, you feel better. You do feel better. And you go, alcohol is actually quite a harmful, toxic substance if you don't control it properly. And it's not nice, and people don't want to hear that. My father certainly doesn't. Drinking his whiskey every night. Luckily, he's okay with whiskey. But it's, if you look at, you just have to do it every now and then. Stop alcohol for a while, feel how useful it is, because it is a bit of a brain fog too much. But there's nothing better than being mindful about alcohol use. So you're going to the theater mid-time, having a white wine spritz or a beer, nice cold beer, on a sunny day like today with mates. But you choose to drink then. It's not, fuck, I need a drink. Then it's a problem. And it can become a problem. That's not mindful. It's about sitting down for a meal and going, wow, I really fancy a glass of red. I'm going to be talking to Mark later. I'm going to grab a glass of red wine. And that's a nice way of drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it. Yeah, and you have as well, obviously, with family. I've seen it, the four ends of the spectrum of people needing it just to even function or not. And I just know that when I used to do it I was so introverted as a late stage teenager. I could not go out without doing it. And all my friend circle, we just, in the UK, it was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, non-stop drinking. And I just thought that was, okay. And people would say, you chat a lot more when you've had a drink. I was like, yeah, no, it's no surprise. Like, I needed to do it just to even engage at like any level. And then when I learned those skills now, I realized it's not something I need to have. It's now more of a, takes me down rather than brings me up, like brings me into that sort of talkative state, if you see what I mean. But
it is an interesting thing. Yeah. But the social anxiety, is that exactly what I use? So you go out, and of course you're so anxious and you glug. So then part of the mindful thing is sipping and taking all those things you finally get to learn. But when you're younger and you go, well, and you're just downing it, and then you realize it gets a bit messy. But if people accept that a little bit when you're younger, it's when you get older and you realize, no, hold on, it's time maybe to sort it out,
So we alluded to it a little bit, but and I don't know enough about it, I admit to say. The anxious shrink, I want to know more about it, because you joked that the picture, or you tell us about it, the imagery.
We had, anyways, we got some money. So I say my best friend Alison Black, who was the producer of Changing Minds and one of my best friends, and she's wonderful. I do anything with her. And she got some money from the city of Sydney. She gets grants so easily for a month of doing something, a community-focused something during COVID about anxiety. So we called it The Anxious Shrink, hashtag The Anxious Shrink. And it's a Facebook page, and we do a live episode every Thursday night. And in fact, we've just finished our 20th one. Maya's got a bit bored. She's lovely, but she doesn't have anxiety. So Sue's now taken over. And it's a wonderful community. And wow, it seems to be getting a lot of traction. So I don't know how they work out these things, right? Alison does all the metrics. At one stage, about a month ago, we'd reached 200,000 people. So it's incredible. And now I don't get any money for it. And this is a community service. But this is the stuff I like and the stuff you like as well. We make a difference. We have to make a difference. Hopefully we do. And so,
what's the kind of format of it? Like, well, how does it?
So we did a StreamYard thing, as we are doing. So I haven't actually changed position since this evening. And we chat, and she asks how my week has been, and we talk about things. And we talk about some difficult things as well. As I said to you, this week was about suicide and how we talk about it and how we cope and how we support each other. Because this patient of mine who's suicided, I cried. The staff cried, patients cried. It's a whole ripple. It's always better off with you. Can I just say that? And so we talk about various things. And a couple of weeks ago, Sue asked me, she's one of my best friends too. So I trust her, and we have a lovely dynamic. And so like we chatting now, and I'll answer anything you ask me. We talk like that. 20 minutes has gone to about half an hour now. I don't want to make it too long. But yeah, the funny thing is when we had the photos done on the page, you'll see my husband said, "You look like a Pakistani gentleman." So that's lovely because I've got this. and I thought, oh my God, are people going to think I'm doing brown face? And I hope not, because that's the worst thing. But no, he's the only one who sees it. So, that's something I do weekly now. Yeah.
And with the feedback or the engagement from it, what sort of questions do you get, or what sort of topics come up? Because it's to have that many people engaging with it is obviously a big thing. There must be something that resonates with them. Is it more they're looking for someone to like advice, or they're just looking for you to like normalize the discussion around it? What do you think?
Well, both those things. And I think so it's about me being open. A doctor who's open about a mental health issue is a big draw card for people. And they also want to know, so they ask, one week we talked about PTSD. So Sue just asked me about PTSD. And we don't script it, so it's in real time like we're doing now. We'll meet beforehand and have a chat about what we like to cover. Sometimes we get there, sometimes we don't. In the 2 weeks previous, we were looking at 20 tips that was in the New York Times to deal with stress and anxiety. And then she'll ask me about some of them, and we'll go into them. So practical stuff, practical advice is also something I really like. And we do that every single week. And it's also about, and humor, you know me. Humor's good. If you laugh, when you're laughing at someone or whether it's good humor. When you laugh, you breathe better and your anxiety goes down. So I always talk about that.
Well, you mentioned the breathing aspect. And I think one of the things I'd struggle was I'd noticed that when something was happening, I'd actually not breathe properly for minutes. Minutes could have gone by and I'm still holding my chest. Even, if I'm listening to someone sometimes or talking, or I'm not that mindful of my breathing whatsoever, and I wonder why sometimes I'm feeling uptight, and I can kind of try to make myself more mindful of my breathing. But it's really tricky. It's hard to actually get yourself in that movement of doing the deep breathing and taking yourself away for a second. How do you, and I'm sure you talk to patients about this, what's your kind of tips around breathing and being mindful of it?
It's interesting, even when I'm talking to you, my posture. So also we're doing work from home, right? So a lot of us are sitting more. So it's about taking those breaks. The commute time, by the way, does not belong to your boss. It's your time to spend time with family and doing a bit of a walk. And I've loved my morning walks. I don't know if I said last time, I haven't seen so many people walk their dogs and children since the 1970s. And I was there, so I remember it. And that's a lovely thing. And so you get this, talking about posture, because that does help open the chest and breathe. And there's this, I think it's very irritating. There's this thing electronic device you can put on your back. And when you start, it beeps. Well, I'd chuck it out the bloody window because it would annoy me to hell. But yes, and I get that band between my scapula. That's really painful. So in between sessions and talks or whatever, I make sure I get up from my desk, do some stretches and go walk downstairs. I do that quite a bit. But with the breathing, I'm more conscious of it now. And even now, but you have to be conscious. And I breath hold. And so every now and then while we're talking, I'm aware that I need to breathe deeper. And a nice little technique, I don't know if you know Hatha Yoga. I had this wonderful Chinese Malaysian manager in London when I was first a consultant. She sent me for interview training. She paid for it. Said, you need some interview training. I'll pay for it. Bye. And off you go. And I joined her team, assertive outreach team. This is an assertive community model that was actually based in Australia, but went by the wayside in the 90s and noughties. Small caseload. So every morning we go to work, and she'd bring in this yoga instructor. So we'd do a half an hour Hatha yoga session. And that's about stretching and breathing. And one of the breathing techniques is you breathe in and you got to let your abdomen out. I won't show you because, it's the diaphragm out. And then you chunk when you breathe out. Like that. And then while you're holding your diaphragm. Yeah. And then it forces you to take a deeper breath in, and you do it again, and it clears the bottom of your lungs, and it actually makes you feel quite invigorated. And then we'd have croissant and coffee, and then we'd start our morning meeting just about what we did the night before. How are we all feeling? Are we coping? Those that aren't coping can stay in the office today. It was just an amazing, this is intuitive, proper mental health in the workplace sort of stuff. And when I left, that was 2001, and when I left in 2005 to come here, 2 people had left, and they were because they needed to go have babies. That was it. It was incredible, and that speaks volumes, doesn't it? So
I love that, like, to start the day with that sounds amazing.
It's wonderful.
Something so simple that anyone can do, right? And anyone can implement in their workplace. You're not asking everyone like anything too deep or personal. It's just it sounds amazing.
No. And again, just very clear. Another one, by the way, for guys, I quite like it. Some of my female patients do too. You beat your chest.
Yeah.
So you do a little bit of a Tarzan. And then breathe. I know everyone looks at you. Wow, again, that invigorates the blood flow, and it makes you feel a bit silly, and you laugh, and then it helps your breathing, all those sort of things. I quite like that too. So I do that with some of my patients. And when they're getting into real horrible moments and they're crying and they can't get up and they sort of can't breathe, I go, stand up, let's do it. We do some little jumps and we hit, and then we start laughing and blubbering, and I give them the tissue and I go, okay, hey, let's talk about something else now. So it's quite a nice little circuit breaker. So we need circuit breakers. Somebody just said Hatha, Hatha, Hatha yoga. There are various types of yoga, right?
Hatha, Hatha, did you say?
Yeah, and that's a real breathe. And look, yoga meditation, and I've read some interesting articles recently about it really helping anxiety. And I have to tell you guys, so next week, and it's come at a good time, I'm actually going to a yoga retreat in the national park near Wollongong. Vegan meals, you know what's really worrying me? No coffee. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to cope. So I'm going to have to take caffeinated green tea. So vegan meals, 5 days of yoga in the morning, workshop, yoga in the afternoon, vegan dinner, and a breathing exercise at night. So I'm really looking forward to it. And whatever you do, flow yoga, breathing, it's not a competition. Of course, I always feel it's a competition, talking about my white South African background. You don't have to compete, right? Because then I get cricks and pains. But every time I do yoga, and I have been stubborn about it for decades, I feel better. Big surprise. I breathe better, my body's better, and I sleep better, and it really helps my anxiety. So there you go.
Why is it that we did? Because I did it pre-kids. My wife and I, just after we got married, actually, went together on a Thursday night or Wednesday night to the yoga place she went to in Pimble, I think it was, or right up that way. And I can still remember the feeling after doing it. It was quite an advanced class, and it wasn't for me. Like, I'm notoriously not flexible, whatever. But it pushed me so hard that afterwards, not only did we actually connect over that, it was very rare, like, we'd actually make proper time for each other. I used to sleep the best I'd ever slept. I can still remember the feeling of the sleep I had after yoga was the best. And we did it for maybe, 2-3 months, every Thursday, whatever. And then something got in the way, like football season started, or something started that, changed it. And then we never did it again. And I look back and I go, I know how good I felt after that. Yet I know I should be doing that stuff. And I know it should be in a routine, even as small as it may be. There's a guy called Sean Veig. I don't know if you've heard of him, but Vigue. You put it, Sean Veig, into YouTube. And he's a Canadian guy, big, like muscular Canadian guy. And he is hilarious, like comedian also, the way he talks through like his yoga stuff. And he used to teach Hollywood actors yoga and all sorts of things. And he just does 10, 15-minute bursts every day of different content, and you can pick it up. And when I picked that up as well, again, but I just can't keep with it. My routine, I don't know why, even when I've got the time, I convince myself I haven't got the time. But
I know that's the thing, right? And we do.
Yeah. It used to make me feel amazing, and I know it's good, but I can't keep a routine of it.
So again, don't beat yourself up, because we all do this, right? Yeah. And we get so worked up and stressed and busy that all the stuff we know is good for us, we ignore. It's a real thing about how the human mind works. And you go, why are we so bad? Again, it comes back to being kind to yourself, allowing that space to go, hey, you're worth it. You actually have to work it yourself. And so you allow yourself, and that's part of it as well. And yoga, it's true, or just stretching. I just do a few stretchy things after walking. I'm not a big stretcher. I really can't stand it. I come from a family of non-stretchers. So, and sometimes it's just the breathing and doing a little bit of a stretch that's helpful, and doing some core work. So I quite like, then you can do the plank, some crunches, and some stretches, and that's 10 minutes a day. Do we do it? No, but when you do it, you feel better. So it's that positive self-talk again.
My mate Sam, and my boss, technically, he one day said, we're going to do this training course thing, and it was a Tony Robbins related training course thing. On my headspace, I'm like a big cynic about these things. I said, I'm going to hate this. This is going to be BS. Like, I just, very rah and whatever. And when you mentioned the beating of the chest thing, it made me laugh, because he's all about, or the trainer we had was teaching us in these sessions about getting a bit uncomfortable and changing your state. And originally, the way she said it, I was like, this is not me at all. I don't want to be the center of attention, blah, blah. And I just started letting myself do it when I was at home during COVID. I said, no. Like, I put this triangle thing in front of me, and it had state on it, one side, physiology, like, what state you're in. I said, okay, go for a walk around the block. And I forced myself just to get up, go, walk around, come back. And I did that, just a bit repetitive, and got in a bit of a routine of doing it. and sorting my back out, like not sitting to, being really aware of like how I'm, and trying to breathe a lot more. I just went, this is just all basic stuff, but we jazz it up as though it's this, I don't know, like it's this divine thing we found that works. Yeah, it was amazing. Like actually, I got a lot from this course, a lot from it that we did just as a work thing, maybe an hour to a month. But the state thing, like what state you are literally in physically, was definitely affecting me. By 2 p.m., I'm like this, hunched over the desk.
Yeah.
I was just going, I was not productive for about 2 hours. I had to change it, and it was really helpful doing that. And there was a lot of chest beating, and
But that's a good, but also coming, and I'm really interested in workplace mental health, and I talked to the Workplace Mental Health Festival this year. It was incredible. But I made a comment, and there were like 500 people on, and some people forget their mics. I love the new COVID way of interacting. People forget their mics are on or off or whatever. And I said two things. I said earlier, the commute time is not owned by your manager. It's you. And if your manager is sending you emails after 6 p.m., they need an intervention. And there were a couple of giggles and sharp intakes of breath. I'm going, well, actually, don't answer emails at nighttime. And actually, I hate people who start doing the thing. Don't feel you have to answer my email. I send them out of time, something like that. No, you shouldn't be sending emails out of. No, don't do it. Do not do it. And then so people quite like that. It was quite funny. But you need a circuit breaker. So however we want to dress it up, with adrenaline pumping, with an anxiety reaction, because there's that horrible physicality that you get. You need to do something physical to get rid of it. You can take medication like Valium or propranolol, that's a beta blocker, brings your heart rate down, all those things, but you have to try and couple it as well with something physical. And so when your thoughts are going and you can't, and you're pacing and you can't sit still, hold some ice in your hand, go sit naked on the bathroom floor, the tiles, you need a shock, or go out, take your shoes off, go outside, squish in the soil a bit. That's called grounding. Those grounding techniques are sometimes what we need when we just can't get out of a panic. So, when you're in panic mode, you need to know, so you have to have a management plan. You can't think when you're in a panic, what should I do now? That time is gone. That time is gone, brother. And you have to have known what you're going to do. So that I think is useful, and I've learned those techniques as well, and I try. Because otherwise you become a shouting mess like I sometimes do. So
The panic plan sounds good. My aunt used to tell me, maybe about 10 years ago when I came to Australia, and I was going through a shitty time at the time, and I don't know why, like she's always been a bit more spiritual. She was in like the corporate world a lot, and then became a bit more spiritual very suddenly. And she used to message me these things, and I would say, "Oh, yeah, thanks very much," but I never really take them in. And one day she just messaged me in the middle of the night. I don't know how she knew I was in this state, and was like, "Go outside, put your feet like on the grass, and she just exactly like ground yourself." And I remember at the time thinking, this is some hippie crap. What is she going on about? And I look back now and go, oh, it was so those things, like it just
exactly. It's common sense.
Like, you're human. This is, you need to be doing those sort of things to like just escape that moment, or at least accept this is you're here, you're human. I got a little comment here.
Yes, I just read it, so I was going to answer.
I wake up super early before work and just lay in bed. I'm going to give this a try. I'm going for a walk in the morning and see if any yoga things happen early doors. Love it. Well, if that makes someone do that, that's brilliant.
Oh, that's great. But can I say about the sleep? And again, being a dreadful sleeper over all these years, big surprise, I became a doctor because, I could wake up like this on call, and that does mess up your sleep anyway. The worst thing you can do, especially in those wee hours of the early morning when the light coming through, wake up and stay in bed, because that's when the mind games begin. You don't want to do that. It's actually a very good thing to do, is just force yourself out of bed. I'll go even one step further. If you want to download an app, it's called Sleep Cycles, $2.98. It's on the app. It's a little alarm clock. I use it. It's amazing. I haven't got any dodgy apps, don't worry, on my phone. Where's the camera? That one. little alarm clock.
Oh yeah.
And what it does, it's a bit like a Fitbit or whatever if you got one, and you plug it, you charge it next to your bed, and you put this app on, and it measures your sleep. Unfortunately, it also measures your snoring, so I don't want to know about that. But and it gives you these graphs. It's amazing. The best thing I like about it, though, is say you want to wake up at 6:30, you put it down for 6:30, and it wakes you between 6 and 6:30 in a light phase of your sleep, which is great because it's not that scientific, but it works. And you get out of bed, and all of a sudden you've got 20 to 25 minutes extra in the morning. Plus, if you start doing that and doing stretchy, nice things, having a coffee and going outside, it doesn't have to be major stuff. Your sleep improves because you're getting into a good routine. Because really what you need to work on is going to bed at a similar time and waking up at a similar time. Even in the weekends. Now, people are going to moan at me and groan. There's nothing better than getting up early on a Saturday, doing all the stuff you have to do at home, and going back to bed. It is actually, as long as it's in the morning, it's actually a great thing to do. You can have a nap up to about an hour and a half. It doesn't affect your night's sleep next night. It's keeping that sleep rhythm going and having a nap in the day. I love it.
Naps in the day are one of the best things since I've had kids. And when we had one, it was easier because you could just, when they were down, I would go for my nap and have like an hour and a half. Maybe that was gold. I would feel amazing after that. Now we've got two, so they're a bit more tricky. So I feel really bad. One day I fell asleep when Carolina wasn't here, and Finn, he's 4.5, but he's there next to me. But I woke up suddenly in this panic of, such a bad dad. Like I've slept while he's, and I must have been out for only 20 minutes. And I was like, oh, geez, no.
That's great. You become a real napper in that circle. But aren't you got 3 now, right?
No, 3 coming. That's coming May. So yeah.
We need to have a talk.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah, I know.
Or maybe you go. I've got this great friend. He was the head of the emergency department, Richard, when I came to this country, and he invited me to his home. And Katie, his wife, they've been together. They've got 3 sons, but he's got 4 kids from his previous marriage. And so you have these dinners now at their house, and there's like 7 of them with girlfriends and boyfriends, and daughters just got married. It's amazing. It's wonderful having a family that's close and that connection. But I don't know. I said, my God, didn't you get the Australian medal or something for having children? I feel for you, no one.
Well, I had that hour of I discussed it with my psychologist. He said, "What did you actually feel like when you knew the third was like coming?" I was like, I had an hour of just not a panic, but an hour of just. I tried to convince myself of all the things that I was like, okay, can't do this because this financially, we can't do this, blah blah blah. And I literally went through my reaction to something normal, and then after an hour, I just kind of let it just flew away, and I was like, actually, this is really good. Like, I came to this kind of, I don't know, I was very happy about it, obviously. It was amazing. Like, and I just go, someone's like testing me. I thought they were testing me, giving me a boy first time round. Now are you giving me 3? It's gonna be tricky.
It's a hard one. That you're gonna love whatever you get, right? And it's I'm quite glad we got 2 boys in a way, because they do so wonderfully together, and plus they get the cast off, so it's great. You don't have to bite your toes.
Well, my mate, the psych reg today said to me, because I was telling him about the different personalities, like one of them being quite thoughtful and anxious, and at times, and the other's just battering around and will run in the room and knock everything down and like have no fear about anything, or say hello to anyone on the street, or want to chat, just. And he said, "What's the third going to be like?" I was like, "I don't know." So we'll see. But,
and again, just that's a lovely comment.
It is very nice.
One guy's just made. At the end of the day, we're all human. We're in this together as much as we can be, right? And there's no shame or guilt in not getting it right. And it's taken me a while to work that out. So I will absolutely impart that hopeful wisdom to you. I'm not perfect. My patients don't expect me to be perfect. Terry's perfect, obviously, Mr. Perfect, but it's not. And actually, as he so eloquently said to me on occasion, it's a lot of pressure to be perfect, and you don't want that pressure. That binary notion, I don't like binary stuff. Unless you hurt kids, that's very clear. I don't agree with that. But everything else is gray and binary. There's not in our society. You're either a success or you're a failure. I'm going, no, that's bullshit. It really is. And remember that we all have our part to play. We all need to be nice to someone, and it's wonderful when you are. And we all have connections. And if you don't, and you need to talk to someone, there's always someone to talk to. It really is. So no matter what curveballs life is throwing us at the moment, we are in this together. Have courage and be kind. And I always say that. And I mean it. And I will try and listen to myself more when I'm in the car.
Yeah, I love it. And look, I was about to ask you your final thoughts. I think we're coming up to the hour now, and that's absolutely perfect. I can't really add anything to that. What you just said, being kinder is obviously a big thing we need to definitely remind ourselves more to do. I would love you to tell us what would you like to plug? Is it the actual shrink?
Plugging. I always find it hard plugging.
Is it your website? You don't want to see any more patients, so definitely not that.
And I'm interested in the workplace stuff, and I'm going to develop that further. And we need to talk about that actually at some stage. You'll be very interested. But the anxious shrink is really coming on nicely, and it's something I'm going to continue. And I've given some talks, and I've put money into it. And we're getting some grants. And by the way, I meant to tell you that another positive thing. We've got a grant from Mardi Gras, ANZ Mardi Gras, to make a film in the day of the life of me as a rainbow doctor dealing with the rainbow community, and it's going to be shown next year. So that's exciting. So always doing something exciting keeps me going. But try out the anxious shrink. And it doesn't clash with Terry, so that's good. You don't have to see it live, but it's quite nice. The chats and whatever, it's quite a nice thing. But you can catch it on YouTube and Facebook afterwards on my page, The Anxious Shrink. And ask questions, and we get back to you, and we post things. And it's a lovely community like this one. So there you go.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time, Mark, as usual. Always an absolute pleasure. I'm sure we'll have you back on again soon.
Oh, I love it. We're friends, and I like chatting to you. So anytime, and it's always good to make connection and talk about stuff.
Exactly. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mark. Take care. See you guys.